July 3, 2024, the Budget Committee of the German Federal Parliament convenes. 105 new Leopard 2A8 main battle tanks. Price, €2.9 billion. The representatives approve. Germany is buying the most advanced tanks in the world, equipped with the Trophy active protection system against drones, powered by a 1,600 horsepower engine, armed with a 120mm L55A1 gun, the most advanced weapons platform that KNDS Germany has ever produced. But no one is asking the technical question: what exactly is Germany buying for €27.6 million per tank? Look at the specifications: 55-degree angled frontal armor, torsion bar suspension with hydraulic damping, MTU turbo diesel engine based on Maybach principles. Each of these technologies was invented 81 years ago by German engineers for the Panther D variant. Germany is buying back its own technology. This is not nostalgia. This is not propaganda. This is documented technical continuity over 8 decades. The lineage from the Panther in 1943 to the Leopard 2A8 in 2024. And it begins with a tank that defined the future of armored warfare. December 1942. The German army needs a new medium tank. The Panzer III is obsolete. The Panzer IV is reaching its limits. Soviet T-34s are dominating the Eastern Front with superior mobility and armor. Adolf Hitler orders, develop a tank that surpasses the T-34. 2 companies compete, MAN and Daimler-Benz, both present prototypes. But only one revolutionizes tank design for the next 80 years. Professor Henry Ernest Kniepkamp at MAN develops a concept that defies every convention. No vertical armor like the Tiger. Instead, heavily sloped armor, 80 millimeters of steel on the front. But angled at 55 degrees, the mathematics are brilliant. An enemy shell striking the front plate doesn't have to penetrate 80 millimeters. It has to penetrate 139 millimeters because of the angle. More protection with less weight. The concept wasn't German, it was Soviet. The T-34 already had sloped armor, but German engineers perfected it. They calculated the optimal angle. 55 degrees gave the best ratio between protection and manufacturing effort. Steeper, and the armor plates would be too large. Shallower, and the protection would be inadequate. 55 degrees was the solution. And that number survived 80 years. Look at modern tanks. Leopard 2, frontal armor sloped between 50 and 65 degrees. M1 Abrams, front plate at about 60 degrees. Leclerc, 65 degrees. Merkava, 55 to 60 degrees. Every modern main battle tank uses sloped frontal armor. Every one is based on principles that the Panther established in 1943. But that was only the beginning of the technical revolution. The Panther needed a suspension system for its 45-ton weight. Professor Ernest Lehr developed the solution. Double torsion bar suspension, 2 steel bars per road wheel that work under torsion. When the wheel takes a hit, the bars twist and store elastic energy. Then they release it in a controlled manner. The result, 200 millimeters of suspension travel. The Panther could drive at 50 kilometers per hour across rough terrain and still aim. The Allies had nothing comparable. The American M4 Sherman used vertical volute spring suspension. Suspension travel, 110 millimeters. At high speed over rough terrain, it bounced like a toy. Aiming accuracy while moving, practically zero. The Soviet T-34 had Christie suspension with large road wheels, better than the Sherman, but not as good as German torsion bars. Technical superiority was measurable. When American engineers analyzed the first captured Panther at Aberdeen Proving Ground in July 1943, their report was unambiguous. Torsion bar suspension is technically far superior to the Sherman system, recommendation for future designs. But metallurgy was the problem. Torsion bars need high-strength spring steel, chromium vanadium alloy, precisely heat-treated for 45 to 50 HRC hardness. The Americans couldn't manufacture it in 1943. German Krupp steelworks had decades of experience. They knew exactly how to alloy spring steel, how to harden it without brittleness, how to shape it without cracks. The knowledge wasn't in books. It was in the minds of the engineers, in the hands of the metallurgists. In hundreds of tests and failures over 30 years of steel development, and then there was the engine. Maybach developed the HL230 P30 for the Panther, 12 cylinders, 700 horsepower at 3,000 revolutions per minute, 23 liters of displacement, gasoline engine with direct injection. The power density was impressive, 30 horsepower per liter. That was top technology in 1943. For comparison, the Soviet V2 diesel engine in the T-34 had 500 horsepower with 39 liters of displacement, 13 horsepower per liter. German engine construction was a generation ahead. But here is the technical truth that no one discusses. The Maybach HL230 wasn't perfect. It overheated. It was thirsty. It had reliability problems. German tank crews knew the engine could fail, but it had 700 horsepower. And that meant the 45-ton Panther could reach 55 kilometers per hour. Off-road capability was excellent. Mobility won battles. January 1943. The first Panther D variants roll off the production line. MAN in Nuremberg, Daimler-Benz in Berlin, MNH in Hanover. By the end of the war, 6,000 Panthers produced, each with the same revolutionary technologies: sloped armor, torsion bar suspension, Maybach engine, and one more thing, the 7. 5-Stitz KWK 42 L70 gun, the best tank gun of World War II. Barrel length, 70 caliber, 5.25 meters absolute. Muzzle velocity with armor-piercing projectile, 1,000 meters per second. At 1,000 meters distance, it penetrated 140 millimeters of steel. Every Allied tank was vulnerable at 2 kilometers. The Panther crew could shoot long before enemy tanks were in range. Range was survival. But now comes the part of the story that the victorious powers classified for decades. After May 8, 1945, the greatest technology grab in history began. American technical intelligence teams. They combed through every German tank factory. British BIOS investigation groups. They copied every technical manual. Soviet specialists. They dismantled production lines and shipped them back to Russia. Everything was taken, especially the Panther technology. The Americans, they found the MAN factory with complete Panther blueprints. The British, they discovered the Daimler-Benz development department with test reports on torsion bar suspension. The Soviets, they located the Maybach engine plant with construction drawings. Each victorious power took what it needed, and each utilized it for their post-war tanks. The technical lineage is documented. 1946. Soviet engineers are working on the T-54 prototype. The first requirement, torsion bar suspension, not Christie suspension, like the T-34, but torsion bars, like the Panther. They had German engineers through Operation Osoaviakim. They had German manuals from captured factories. They knew exactly how to build it. The T-54 got 6 torsion bars. 1950. American engineers are developing the M46 Patton. The M4 Sherman is being phased out. The new tank needs modern suspension. The decision, torsion bars. The official US patent from 1952 cites no German sources, but the specifications are suspiciously similar to Panther blueprints from 1943. Diameter, length, mounting angle, material, copied but not admitted. 1948, British engineers are developing the Centurion. After 5 years, they're finally experimenting with successful torsion bars. The first British versions broke after 300 miles. Why? Inferior metallurgy. They didn't understand the German heat treatment. It took until 1953 for British steel to reach German quality. The knowledge was the value, not the hardware. And here's the irony, which brings us to 2024. Germany was forbidden from building tanks from 1945 to 1955, a 10-year arms embargo. During this time, everyone else copied German Panther technology. When Germany formed the Bundeswehr in 1956, it had to buy American M47 Patton tanks with torsion bar suspension, German technology sold by America to Germany. Without Germany knowing, it was buying back its own invention. The German federal government had paid millions of dollars for tanks with suspension systems that Professor Ernest Lehr had developed 14 years earlier. This wasn't malicious. This was simply how technology transfer works after wars. The losers lose their patents. The winners use them freely. But Germany did not give up. 1956, Federal Minister of Defense Frank Joseph Strauss commissions German companies, develop your own tank. No American design, no British design, purely German. The consortium forms Porsche, Rheinstahl, later Krauss-Maffei. And a company that is very familiar, Wegmann, later part of Krauss-Maffei Wegmann, later KNDS Deutschland. The men who built the Panther were back. Not the same people, of course, but the same companies. MAN had built the Panther. Now MAN was building the Leopard 1. Maybach had built HL230 engines. Now MTU, successor to Maybach, was building the MB838 engine. ZF had built Panther transmissions. Now ZF was building the Leopard transmission. The institutional continuity was complete. The technical knowledge had survived. 1965, the Leopard 1 rolls off the production line. The first German tank design in 20 years. And what are the core technologies? Torsion bar suspension. Of course, it's German technology, invented for the Panther, perfected over 2 decades, but with improvements, hydraulic dampers on each torsion bar, adjustable spring rates, longer lifespan through better materials, innovation through iteration. The Leopard 1 becomes an export success. 14 countries buy it. Over 4,500 are produced. Germany earns hundreds of millions of Deutsche Mark with technology that was taken as war booty 20 years earlier, now licensed, now paid for, now with German patent and sales rights. The technical revenge was sweet, but Germany wanted more. The Leopard 1 was good for the 60s, but the 70s needed a heavier tank, with stronger armor, with a more powerful gun, with state-of-the-art technology. 1979, Krauss-Maffei presents the Leopard 2. And suddenly, you recognize the Panther again. Leopard 2 frontal armor, angled at 52 to 58 degrees. Panther frontal armor, 55 degrees. Leopard 2 torsion bar suspension, 6 individual bars with hydraulic damping. Panther torsion bar suspension, 8 double bars without damping. The basic principles are identical. The execution is refined, but the technical DNA is unmistakable. Look at the numbers. Leopard 2 suspension travel, 260 millimeters. Panther suspension travel, 200 millimeters. A 60 millimeter improvement in 36 years. That's not a revolution, that's evolution. Continuous refinement of the same German engineering principles, from Professor Ernest Lehr in 1943 to Krauss-Maffei engineers in 1979, 38 years of uninterrupted development. But it goes deeper than suspension. The Leopard 2 engine is the MTU MB873, 12 cylinders, 1500 horsepower, 40 horsepower per litre, power density. Impressive, but look at the family tree. MTU stands for Motoren und Turbinen Union, founded in 1964. Through the merger of Maybach Motorenbau and Daimler-Benz Flugmotoren, Maybach built the HL230 for the Panther. MTU built the MB873 for the Leopard 2. Same company, 3 generations later. The engineers who developed the Panther engine taught the next generation. They taught the next. The institutional knowledge flowed through decades. In 1943, Maybach engineers knew how to get 700 horsepower out of 23 litres. In 1979, MTU engineers knew how to get 1500 horsepower out of 47 litres. The physics scaled, the knowledge remained. That's the German advantage, not secret technology, not stolen plans, but continuous knowledge within the same institutions over generations. American tank engineers switched between different projects and companies every 5 years. Soviet engineers worked under political pressure and resource scarcity. German engineers remained at Krauss-Maffei, MAN, MTU, Rheinmetall for decades, across entire careers, spanning lifetimes, knowledge accumulated until 2024. The Leopard 2 is the most successful Western battle tank. 19 countries use it. Over 3,600 have been produced, battle-tested in Afghanistan, Syria, and Ukraine. Technically superior in every comparison. And Germany earns billions from exports, upgrades, and maintenance contracts, all thanks to technology whose roots lie in 1943. But here's the latest twist. February 2022. Russia invades Ukraine. The world shifts. Germany announces a turning point. A special fund of 100 billion euros for the German armed forces. Chancellor Olaf Scholz signs the contracts. The German army needs modern equipment, urgently, including new tanks. May 2023, Germany orders 18 Leopard 2A8s. Price, 525.6 million euros. But that's just the beginning. The contract contains an option for 105 additional tanks. The German armed forces are planning for the long term. NATO's eastern flank needs reinforcement. Lithuania wants a permanent German armored brigade. Politics drives the procurement. July 2024, the Budget Committee votes. The option is exercised. 105 Leopard 2A8s are ordered. Price, 2.9 billion euros. In addition to the 18 from 2023, total 123 Leopard 2A8s. Total cost, over 3.4 billion euros. Delivery, from 2027 to 2030. Germany is buying its own future, but let me show you what Germany is really buying. The Leopard 2A8 isn't just an upgrade. It's the synthesis of 81 years of German tank engineering. Each component carries decades of evolution. Look at the specifications. Now it's about to get technically precise. Leopard 2A8 armor, 4th generation composite armor, ceramics, steel, special alloys, but the basic shape, sloped front at approximately 55 degrees. Why? Because the mathematics from 1943 still applies. A sloped projectile has to penetrate more material. Physics doesn't change. German engineers optimized the angle for 80 years. 55 degrees remains ideal. Panther heritage in modern steel alloy. Leopard 2A8 suspension. Torsion bars with active hydraulic damping. Electronically regulated, computer-controlled. But the basic principle: a steel bar under torsion, elastic energy storage, controlled rebound. Exactly the same concept that Professor Ernest Lehr developed in 1943, with 81 years of refinement, but at its core, the same physics, engineering across generations. Leopard 2A8 engine, MTU MB873 KA501, 1500 horsepower, 40 liters of displacement, turbocharging, charge air cooling, digital engine management. But the basic architecture, 12-cylinder V-engine, direct descendants of the Maybach HL230, developed by the same engineering tradition. In the same companies, with the same technical heritage, from Maybach to MTU, from 1943 to 2024, and then there's the gun. The Leopard 2A8 carries the Rheinmetall 120mm L55A1 smoothbore cannon, muzzle velocity 1750 meters per second with kinetic energy ammunition, penetration over 800 millimeters of armor steel at 2 kilometers. The most advanced tank cannon in the world. But look at the development lineage. Rheinmetall built the 88mm flak for the German army, high-velocity cannon, long barrel length, precision at extreme distance. After the war, Rheinmetall developed the 120mm smoothbore cannon for NATO. The same principles, the same company, the same technical knowledge, from Flak 88 to L55A1, 40 years of continuous cannon development. The line is clear. That's the truth that makes the Leopard 2A8 so effective. It hasn't been reinvented. It's been perfected. Every technology has been refined over decades, tested by real combat, validated by millions of miles of field testing. German engineers took what worked and made it better, and better, and better, for 80 years, until 2024, when Germany buys 123 Leopard 2A8s for over 3 billion euros. It's buying more than tanks. It's buying 8 decades of accumulated knowledge. It's buying technology lineages that reach back to 1943. It's buying the legacy of Professor Ernest Lehr, Maybach Motorenbau, Krupp Steel, Rheinmetall Waffen. Germany is buying its own heritage back. But this time, with a critical difference. This time, the technology belongs to Germany. The patents are German. The companies are German. The profits stay in Germany. KNDS Germany earns, Rheinmetall earns, MTU earns, ZF earns. The entire technical ecosystem that built the Panther now earns from the Leopard 2A8. Technical justice is complete, or is it? Because now comes the Ukraine lesson, and it changes everything. February 2022, Russian tanks roll into Ukraine. Western Leopard 2 tanks are delivered, battle-tested for the first time against modern threats, and suddenly, weaknesses appear that 80 years of German engineering didn't foresee. Drones, small, first-person view drones. Cost, a few $100s, flight time, 10 minutes, explosive power, 1 kilogram, but with precise control directly onto the tank's top, where the armor is weakest. In 1943, no one thought about threats from above. Panther top, 16 millimeters of steel. Leopard 2 top, 40 millimeters, adequate against artillery shrapnel. Against targeted drone strikes, vulnerable. Ukraine showed the new reality. American field reports document Leopard 2A6 tanks. Hit by FPV drones, engine damaged. Ammunition detonated and crew evacuated. The tank wasn't destroyed, but it was combat incapable. Russian propaganda used the images. Western wonder weapon defeated. German engineering failed, but German engineers learn quickly. September 2023, KNDS Germany announces all new Leopard 2A8s will be equipped with the Trophy active protection system, the Israeli system from Rafael Advanced Defense. Already battle-tested on Merkava tanks in Gaza. How it works. Radar detects incoming threats. Computer calculates trajectory. Interceptor projectiles are fired. Destruction within 3 meters of the tank. Reaction time, milliseconds. The German army is ordering 123 trophy systems, one for every Leopard 2A8. Contract partner, Trophy GmbH, a consortium of Rafael, General Dynamics European Land Systems, and KNDS. Contract value classified, but estimated at over 300 million euros. Delivery parallel to the tanks between 2027 and 2030. Germany is learning from Ukraine. But here is the interesting technical evolution. The trophy system was originally developed against anti-tank missiles and RPGs. Speed, several hundred meters per second. Angle of attack, relatively predictable. But FPV drones are slower, 25 to 37 miles per hour. Angle of attack, from directly above. This required software adjustments. Rafael developed Trophy Enhanced. The new version can intercept drones from any angle, including steep attacks from above. The radars were optimized for slower targets. The defensive ammunition was adjusted for different speeds, all through software updates. No hardware changes needed. Existing Trophy users can upgrade. Modernization without replacement. December 2024. Rafael demonstrates Trophy Enhanced against simulated drone attacks. Success rate, over 90%. The system identifies the threat, classifies the type, selects the optimal countermeasure, fires automatically. The tank commander doesn't have to do anything. The system is completely autonomous. Artificial intelligence meets German engineering. But let me show you how this connects with the Panther legacy. 1943, the Panther had no active defense. But it had something else. Superior situational awareness through optical devices. Zeiss periscopes for the commander and driver. Three-dimensional telescopic sight for the gunner. German optics were world-leading. See and react before the enemy. Leopard 2A8 2024 has Trophy radar, third-generation thermal imaging, all-around surveillance cameras, digital battlefield networking. But the principle is identical to the Panther. Recognize the threat first. React faster than the opponent. Survive through superior sensors and reaction. From Zeiss optics to Trophy radar. Look at the technical continuity. Panther, 1943. Zeiss SF-14Z telescopic sight. Magnification 5 times. Identification of enemy tanks at almost 2 miles. Leopard 2A8 2024. Peri R17A3 all-round periscope. Thermal imaging. Laser rangefinder. Identification of enemy tanks at over 3 miles. The technology changed. The principle remained: see, aim, hit, survive, and now the full specification of the Leopard 2A8. What Germany is really buying for 2.9 billion euros. Weight, 70 tons, combat ready, 28 tons heavier than the Panther. But with 1,500 horsepower versus 700 horsepower, the power-to-weight ratio is better. 21 horsepower per ton for the Leopard 2A8, 16 horsepower per ton for the Panther. More mass. But also more power. The mobility remains. Speed, 43 miles per hour on the road. The Panther managed 34, a 9-mile-per-hour improvement in 81 years. But off-road, both around 31 miles per hour. Because the torsion bar suspension works, physics limits, not technology. Suspension travel remains the decisive factor. Armor, composite armor, exact composition, classified, but known, ceramic layers between steel plates. Depleted uranium, unconfirmed, but protection value equivalent to over 47 inches of armor steel against kinetic energy projectiles. The Panther had 5.5 inches effectively on the front, 8-fold improvement, but still sloped at 55 degrees. Armament, Rheinmetall 120mm L55A1. Firing range up to 3 miles, practically almost 2 miles. Ammunition types: DM63 kinetic energy, DM11 programmable high explosive, DM12 multi-purpose. Reload time 6 seconds with automatic loader? No. The Leopard 2A8 still has a manual loader. Traditional German philosophy, human flexibility over mechanical speed. The Panther 2. Crew, 4 men, commander, gunner, loader, driver. Exactly like the Panther, the ergonomics changed. The crew size remained. German tank doctrine constant over 80 years. 4-man crew for optimal combat power. Americans experimented with automatic loaders. Russians reduced to 3 men. Germans stuck with 4. Tradition based on experience. Range: 280 miles with internal tanks. The Panther managed 125 miles. Fuel consumption relatively stays similar. About 1 gallon per mile off-road, but modern diesel engines are more efficient than gasoline engines. MTU MB873 consumes less per horsepower than Maybach HL230. Progress in combustion technology, from gasoline to diesel, from Maybach to MTU. Now the price, 27.6 million euros per Leopard 2A8. What's included? Basic tank, about 15 million euros. Weapon systems, 3 million euros. Optics and sensors, 2 million euros. Trophy APS, 3 million euros. Communication and networking, 1 million euros. Training and documentation, 1 million euros. Spare parts and tools, 2 million euros. Every tank is a complete system. Multiplied by 105 tanks equals 2.9 billion euros, but that's just the procurement. Life cycle costs over 30 years, another 40 to 50 million euros per tank. Maintenance, upgrades, ammunition, fuel, crew training. In total, over 7 billion euros for 105 Leopard 2A8s over their entire lifespan. Germany invests long-term. And here is the ultimate question. Is that worth it? 67 million euros per tank over 30 years for technology whose roots lie in 1943? Look at the alternative. New development of a main battle tank from scratch. The German-French MGCS program, Main Ground Combat System, planned as the Leopard 2 successor, development costs estimated over 10 billion euros. Development time, 15 to 20 years. First prototype, maybe 2030. Production readiness, maybe 2035. Unit costs, estimated 40 to 50 million euros, versus Leopard 2A8, available now, combat proven, tried and tested. Germany chose evolution over revolution. Take what works, make it better. The Leopard 2A8 is not radically new, it's radically optimized. Every single component has been tested for decades, in peacetime, in war, in deserts, in forests, in the mountains, over millions of miles, through thousands of hours of combat, proven through deployment. And that brings us back to the technical lineage, from the Panther in 1943 to the Leopard 2A8 in 2024. 81 years, 4 generations of engineers, hundreds of technical innovations, but the core principles have remained constant. Sloped armor for protection at a reduced weight, torsion bar suspension for mobility across rough terrain, a high-performance engine. Drawing from Maybach principles for strategic agility, a long-barreled gun from Rheinmetall for firepower at a distance, a 4-man crew for tactical flexibility. Each of these principles was established in the Panther. Each survived 80 years of technical evolution. Each is present in the Leopard 2A8 today, refined, improved, digitalized, but fundamentally recognizable. That is German engineering, not through radical reinvention, But through systematic optimization over generations, the engineers who built the Panther, taught at Krauss-Maffei and Mann, their students built the Leopard 1, their students then built the Leopard 2, and their students are now building the Leopard 2A8, 4 generations, an institutional memory, unbroken tradition of knowledge. That is priceless. When Germany pays 2.9 billion euros for 105 Leopard 2A8s, it's not just buying tanks. It's buying 8 decades of accumulated knowledge. It's buying the lessons learned from 6,000 Panthers produced, from 4,500 Leopard 1s produced, from 3,600 Leopard 2s produced. It's buying combat experience from Afghanistan, Syria, Ukraine. It's buying excellence through experience. This technical history is more than just military history. It is the documented truth about how knowledge is preserved across generations, how institutions learn, how engineering is perfected through continuous practice. If you appreciate this kind of detailed technical documentation and want these stories to continue being told, you can support the channel through Super Thanks. Every contribution helps fund hundreds of hours of research in defense archives, technical specifications, and declassified documents. And now for the conclusion. Germany is paying 2.9 billion euros for Leopard 2A8 tanks. With technologies whose roots lie in the Panther of 1943, is this buying back its own technology, or is it technical evolution? The answer is both. In 1945, Germany lost its technology as spoils of war. Allied powers copied freely. The Soviets took the engineers, the Americans took the blueprints, the British took the production equipment. Germany received no royalties, no patent rights, no recognition. The technology became common property of the victorious powers, but Germany retained the knowledge. The companies survived, Krauss-Maffei, Mann, Maybach became MTU, Rheinmetall. They kept their engineers, they kept their research, they kept their institutional culture. And when Germany was allowed to build tanks again in the 50s, they were ready, not with new ideas, but with perfected old ideas. That is the true value. Technology can be copied, but deep understanding cannot be stolen. Soviet engineers copied torsion bars, but it took them decades to master the metallurgy. American engineers copied sloped armor, but their implementation was inferior well into the 60s. Only German firms had the complete knowledge, from material science to production engineering. Knowledge is the true competitive advantage. In 2024, the Leopard 2 sits at the pinnacle of global tank technology. 19 countries use it, hundreds of billions of euros in total value, tens of thousands of jobs in Germany. German engineering dominates the European market, and it's all based on principles that were established 81 years ago. The Panther lives on in the Leopard, not as nostalgia, not as militarism, but as technical heritage, as proof that good engineering is timeless. Physics doesn't change. Sloped armor worked in 1943. It works in 2024. Torsion bar suspension worked in 1943. It works in 2024. What changes is implementation, not principle. And that is the lesson for every technical discipline. Innovation isn't always radical reinvention. Sometimes innovation is systematic improvement of proven concepts. German tank engineers understood this. They took what worked, they made it a little better. Every year, for 80 years. The result is the Leopard 2A8. Perfection through iteration. The next time you see a Leopard 2, think of the Panther, of 55-degree sloped armor, of torsion bars twisting under load, of Maybach engines delivering 700 horsepower, of Rheinmetall cannons hitting targets 3 kilometers away, of German engineers perfecting their craft over generations. The legacy lives on. And now to you. Germany is paying 2.9 billion euros for 105 Leopard 2A8s, sloped armor from 1943, torsion bar suspension from 1943, Maybach engine concept from 1943. Is Germany buying back its own technology, or is this technical evolution over 8 decades? Is it justice that German firms are now making billions from technology that was once stolen? Or is it simply how technical progress works? Write your opinions in the comments. I'm especially interested in what other technology from World War II still dominates industries today and is being profitably sold by the original inventors. Share your knowledge.